Once Upon a Rose. So, Keeper of the Lost Cities. Meet Sophie Foster. She's 12, she has a photographic memory, and oh yeah, she's also a telepath. Which sounds awesome until you realize it mostly means hearing everyone's worst thoughts, especially about you. Sophie spends most of her life hiding this ability, just trying to survive middle school. But then one day, on a boring dinosaur field trip, everything changes. In strolls a boy who looks like he stepped straight out of a shampoo commercial. Perfect hair, intense eyes, holding a newspaper, with Sophie's face on it. So here's Fitz. He starts casually chatting with Sophie, nothing too wild, until a bunch of kindergartners come running in. Their thoughts slam into Sophie like someone cranked the volume on 1,000 TVs. She's overwhelmed. And, wait, Fitz is overwhelmed too. That's when Sophie realizes he hears it as well. Fitz, you hear it too? Thought so. Sophie, uh-oh. And then Fitz drops the bombshell. We've been looking for you for 12 years. Which is not a normal thing to say to someone you just met. Sophie panics, bolts out of the museum, and runs straight into the street. A car swerves, slams into a lamppost, and the lamppost starts falling, right onto Sophie. But before it can squash her, Sophie stops it midair with her mind. Fitz, yeah, okay, called it, you're not human. Sophie, what do you mean I'm not human? Fitz, you're an elf. Sophie, like Legolas? Or Christmas elf with pointy shoes? Fitz, definitely Legolas, no jingling shoes involved. And just like that, Sophie's human life is officially wrecked. Fitz pulls out something called a pathfinder, which to Sophie looks like a fancy crystal on a stick, but apparently it can turn you into light particles and teleport you across the world. Fitz, hold my hand, step into the beam. Sophie, this sounds extremely unsafe. Fitz, trust me. Sophie, I literally just met you. But she does it anyway. And suddenly she's standing in Eternalia, the elf capital. Imagine Disneyland if every building was made of rainbow crystals and no one had ever invented subtlety. Sophie, you guys don't believe in beige, do you? But things aren't all sparkle and rainbows. Back home in San Diego, the city is basically on fire. Fitz asks why no one's putting it out. Sophie says the humans are trying. Then Sophie is taken to meet the counselors, aka the elven government. There's Kenrick, tall, ginger, and permanently cheerful. Orally, literally glowing like a perfume ad. And Bronte looks like he's been scowling for 500 years and has ears so pointy they could slice bread. They test Sophie's powers. First, she levitates a goblet. Okay. Then 2 more goblets. Still okay. Then 3 more goblets. But Bronte's like, is that all? So Sophie, in a panic, levitates him. Bronte crashes to the ground. Everyone else laughs. Bronte does not. And just like that, Sophie's made her first immortal enemy. Afterward, Alden, who is Fitz's dad, takes Sophie to Atlantis, which in this world is a real, fully functioning underwater city. Getting there involves sliding down a magical whirlpool like the world's deadliest water slide. Sophie lands at the bottom, completely dry thanks to elf science. Of course, Sophie can't just go back to her human family after this. Alden tells her she has to leave them behind, for their safety. His plan? Fake Sophie's death. Sophie, that's a little dramatic, don't you think? So instead, the elves agree to erase her family's memories, which honestly isn't much better. Sophie goes home, packs her things, and says a tearful goodbye that her family doesn't understand. Before leaving, she asks Fitz to grab her stuffed blue elephant in a Hawaiian shirt. Because when you're heading into magical chaos, you need a comfort teddy. Then she's brought to Havenfield, the home of her new guardians. Grady is an animal whisperer dad who can mesmerize people into doing anything. Edeline is a sweet but anxious conjurer who can summon objects from thin air. They run a giant animal preserve where all kinds of magical creatures live, including dinosaurs, giant dragonflies, and creatures Sophie is way too young to be legally responsible for. But Havenfield isn't all fun. Grady and Edeline lost their only daughter, Jolie, in a fire years ago. Sophie can feel the grief hanging in the air. She can't help but wonder if she's supposed to replace Jolie. At least they have mallow melt, an elven dessert so gooey and sweet it briefly convinces Sophie that everything might be okay. Next up, Foxfire, the most prestigious elf school there is. Before Sophie even gets there, she meets Dex, her new best friend. He's awkward, loyal, and has permanent underdog energy because his parents are a bad genetic match, which in the elf world is basically the equivalent of being stamped loser at birth. Then comes Sophie's first day at Foxfire. Dame Alina, the headmistress, literally shines a spotlight on her during assembly. Sophie: "This is the worst day of my life. Lockers open when you lick them. Gross." Sophie bombs her first alchemy class, dissolves her teacher's cape, and somehow becomes popular for it. Stina, resident mean girl, makes it her mission to ruin Sophie's life. Morella swoops in to rescue Sophie at lunch. And Keefe shows up, chaos incarnate. If trouble exists, he's already in it. And then, splotching. Think dodgeball, but instead of balls, you hurl paintballs at each other using your mind. Sophie dominates match after match until she ends up facing Fitz in the final. Their powers collide so hard they both get knocked unconscious. Sophie: "This school year is off to a fantastic start. Between school drama and Havenfield animal chores, Sophie keeps noticing glitches in her brain. She can read special runes she's never studied. She knows formulas she's never learned." Meanwhile, Alden and Tiergan, who is Sophie's telepathy teacher, keep whispering about the Black Swan, a rebel group that's been leaving cryptic messages and symbols everywhere. Finally, Alden tells her the truth. Sophie isn't just any elf. She is Project Moonlark. The Black Swan literally engineered her DNA, made her stronger, smarter, and gave her more powers than any kid her age. Then they stuck her with humans as part of some giant secret plan. Sophie: "So basically, I'm a lab project?" Alden: "No, you're special." Sophie: "That's exactly what a scientist says about their mutant hamster right before it grows fangs." Sophie's identity crisis activated. Meanwhile, the wildfires in San Diego are getting worse. But these aren't normal fires. They're Everblaze, a magical flame that burns hotter than anything else and never goes out. The council shrugs. Not our problem. Sophie: "Humans are literally dying." So she decides to fix it herself. At 12, with hardly any plan, she grabs Gildy, a fiery pterodactyl called a Flareodon, and bottles the Everblaze in a crystal container. It works, but then she gets kidnapped. The kidnappers wear cloaks, use creepy gadgets, and keep interrogating Sophie. Why do you exist? What secrets are in your brain? They burn her arms. They threaten to kill Dex, who was kidnapped with her. Sophie finally snaps and unlocks a terrifying new power: inflicting, the ability to make people feel pain with her mind. It's brutal, it's terrifying, and it scares Sophie almost as much as it scares them. They barely escape thanks to a mysterious rescuer, but when she collapses during a light leap, she almost fades into nothingness, until Fitz's voice pulls her back. She wakes up at Everglen, Fitz's family home, with Elwyn the healer treating her burns and her friends standing guard. As if surviving kidnapping wasn't enough, Sophie's dragged before the council for a tribunal. Bronte thinks Sophie should be expelled from Foxfire, but the rest of the counselors agree Sophie should be allowed to stay. Verdict: Sophie can stay at Foxfire, but her new inflicting mentor? Bronte himself. Meanwhile, Sophie has to decide who adopts her. Grady and Edeline, the sad, kind, animal-loving ones, or Alden and Della, fancy mansion people. Sophie chooses Grady and Edeline, because family beats luxury, and also Mallowmelt. Always Mallowmelt. So by the end of book 1, Sophie has found out she's an elf, said goodbye to her human family, survived her first semester at elf school, learned she's a genetically engineered science project, been kidnapped, tortured, and traumatized, unlocked new abilities, extra telepathy powers, inflicting and being a polyglot, and chosen Grady and Edeline as her new family. She also knows Mr. Forkle, the one who rescued her and Dex, is secretly a rebel mastermind. The Black Swan are pulling strings, and Everblaze is still out there. And Sophie? She's just turned 13. And that's just book 1. Next time, Exile. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.